All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Metal Blade live series podcast. I am super stoked today to have some pretty special guests here. Nuclear Power Trio. This is crazy, you guys. I'm a little nervous. You gotta forgive me for that. It's pretty crazy talking to guys of your caliber, right? Like, how have you guys been doing? How you hanging in there? Word. Well, I mean, nuclear power trio. Anyway, so it's like I said. We've got three world leaders on the show. Uh, it's something I never really thought that I'd ever get to experience in my life. So yesterday, you announced your signing with Metal Blade Records, as well as releasing the first single from your upcoming EP, A Clear and Present Rager. Can you guys tell us a little bit about how this all came together? Is all right. Sorry about that, everybody. We have a hi, hello. Who are you?
Hi, my name is Kaylee, 8.6 Curix. I am the newly appointed press secretary for Nuclear Power Trio.
Oh, well, hello. Is everything okay over there? Are you guys doing all right?
Yes, there was an immediate planetary emergency that the three had to attend to. It had absolutely nothing to do with golf or double star day at Starbucks, so don't think that. But
Oh, okay.
everything's
Absolutely. That makes sense. I wasn't expecting them to stick around too long. But did you say 8.6? Is that something that what's the 8.6 all about?
it's my middle name, but it's also a unit of measurement.
A measurement of what?
That's irrelevant.
All right. Anyway, let's just move on. This is a new one for me, I guess, on every possible front. Okay, so I guess I'll just reformat these questions for you. So I just asked about how this whole crazy thing kind of came together with Nuclear Power Trio and all these world leaders getting together playing jazz fusion.
Right. I can understand how that would be a question that the American people might have, as well as the rest of the citizens in the world. And when it came up that there should be a formation of a supergroup, Kimmy, Donnie, and Vlad were not necessarily the first three names that would maybe come to mind if someone was talking about this. And we've seen some crazy things happen in 2020 so far, so I'm not quite sure who else could have come together to save our planet at this time, because we are facing things like murder hornets, fire tornadoes, off-world aircraft, parallel universes, etc. I have Bono has just started a grindcore band. Here is more coming in.
Wait, Bono started a grindcore band?
Anyway, as many are well aware, Donnie and Kimmy first met each other in Singapore, where they established their relationship writing letters. Donnie has told me personally that he found these letters to be specifically romantic, and he even exchanged a very quick "I love you" with Kimmy. Although it was a very awkward conversation, they both knew that it was very real.
Oh, I can imagine that sounds that sounds a little intimate. I mean, what other details can you give us on that? I mean, this is some pretty hot tea that we have, about this love relationship between
Yes,
these.
I would say when they gazed into each other's eyes and they reported, yes, we fell in love, but in a way that band members fall in love and nothing more
Ah,
than that
yeah,
specifically.
absolutely.
As all good conversations do, the topic quickly shifted to music. Turns out politics are not the best thing to talk about if you want to maintain good spirits. So we started to see how much they had in common, actually.
What are some of those points? What did they have in common? If you could divulge. I mean, obviously, outside of being political leaders of major world superpowers, that is.
They had much more in common that besides that. Turns out Donnie loves John Bush era anthrax. Kimmy loves John Bush era anthrax.
Who doesn't really?
Loved Gloria Estefan. Kimmy loved Gloria Estefan. Donnie loved Meshuggah. Kimmy loved Meshuggah. Donnie loved cattle decapitation. Kimmy thought they were pretty okay. It was
That's
good
fair.
enough.
That's
That's
fair. Well, I mean, that's actually a kind of beautiful story. I just got in that I have some footage of a little bit of the formation of the band when they started their first jam. So let's go ahead and roll some of that B-roll here real quick. Wow, that's, I mean, inspiring to say the least. That they could come together in such a beautiful way to, really, really create this music. So, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, so did the band know the sound that they wanted to go for? Did they? Yeah. Well, I guess before I go into that, I mean, how did Vlad get involved? We've talked about Kimmy and Donnie here a lot, but what was Vlad's initial involvement into the project?
When they were becoming a trio from a duo, they determined that both Kimmy and Donnie were multi instrumentalists. They both played a plethora of instruments. Donnie learned to play the triangle at a very young age. He eventually graduated all the way to the star, and then 50 of them together he could play. It was very amazing. Kimmy could drive by the age of 3. He was really a child prodigy in that way. So they had to kind of come to some sort of conclusion as to who was going to play what. And they found that Donnie just had an affinity for classical guitar. It was very beautiful. And Kim just was so hard hitting and brutal that it made no sense to have him anywhere else than behind the drum kit of peace.
Hmm. That does make sense. That does make sense. So I mean, so it sounds like at this point, what they really needed was a bass player, right?
Right, and it took a long time to fill that spot. I know initially they had some people in mind, but Vlad kept coming up. They knew that he could sing, they knew that he could play piano, but they weren't quite sure if he would be fitting on bass. They were also afraid to talk to him. His horse was just so majestic. They didn't know if they could approach him without looking silly, and they did not want to be made fun of. But it turns out that Vlad had simply covered recently a, what is that? Lovely Day. Okay, Lovely Day by Bill Withers on bass, now available on YouTube. Please check that out, look it up. And they saw this video and knew that they had found their third trio member. So they approached him cautiously and whispered into his ear gently, "Vlad, Will you please join us?
You know, I feel like that's probably the best way to approach Mr. Putin.
He knew they weren't a threat. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like, taming a bear, which does kind of make a little bit of sense. He's a very intimidating person. And Bill Withers, Lovely Day. That's a really incredible tune. This is all so crazy. I'm sorry, I'm taken aback a little bit. So the band, did they really know how they wanted to start right off the bat? It's like Anthrax and Gloria Estefan and Meshuggah, and then you have this guy doing these Bill Withers covers. Like, it seems like there was just such a musical alliance, I guess, for lack of a better word, that could be formed out of this. Like, what did they, it's such a, I guess, what am I trying to say here is that it's just such a crazy mix, you know what I mean, of instrumentalism and styles and political stances and foreign policies. It's just like, how did they decide what they wanted to do, in an atmosphere where deciding what you want to do as a world leader kind of seems difficult in the first place?
Well, that is one thing to take into consideration, is that they did not start with the intention of creating this Latin fugent kind of feel. They wanted it to be natural, they wanted it to be organic, and simply whatever came to them. In order for this music to blossom, they had to set their political differences aside. They did realize Donnie had a knack for these beautiful classical guitar parts, but that they wanted to funk it up and make it a little more genteel, if that makes sense. Yes. They just kind of started with that, and then sort of everything built around that as it turned more into the party groove that it is today.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, I guess that's kind of a cool way to do it, you know what I mean? Like, going into it blind, it allows your, kind of creative juices to flow in such a way that, kind of like bounces off of each other, and everybody kind of gets to put their own influence in, and, it creates, a really unique vibe, which this project certainly is unique. Anyway, one thing that has come up that people are really resonating with, and that I want to talk about, is the band's sort of mission statement, right? So a few videos have popped up over the past few days that have really been focusing on world peace. You mentioned the drum kit of peace. Peace seems to really kind of be a big thing among them, which is, I'm sure not only to me a little bit of a surprise given, their histories, but that being aside, did the music come first, or did the whole like save the world thing?
Well, it was really more of like a chicken and the egg kind of scenario. Like, who came first, really?
I think the rooster came first.
He always does, doesn't he?
He usually does. Anyway, you were saying?
So when the band was established and they had to kind of come up with some sort of direction for their music, Donnie, Vlad, and Donnie, Vlad, and Kimmy, because I am a reporter who knows the names of the people in the band.
I believe you. Yeah, it's very believable.
Absolutely. You can tell. Had many meaningful conversations regarding the direction they wanted to take it, but they realized in order to do that, all three of them had to come to terms with their own narcissistic personality disorder and kind of strict way of ruling. And in order for them to put that aside, it took a lot of self-introspection, a lot of band yoga had to take place. And as that happened, they just realized that the nature of what they did as music was kind of something that everyone could come together under. It was a nonpartisan issue at that point because everyone could just groove and funk. Yes.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like, it's really kind of inspiring. Like I said, I know I've said that a few times during this interview, but it's such a
people, yes.
I feel like they all do pride themselves on the inspiration that they bring to the world. It's the nature of it just seems really divisive, almost impossible to get people to focus on these common things that they do agree on. I mean, were there any kind of like joint cabinet meetings where the three of them would, get together? Like, did they play their music for any kind of like, Senate chairs just to kind of get everybody on the same page? Or was that like where they first started? It's kind of like,
you might go to a talent show or an open mic night. For them, it was cabinet meetings. And instead of bringing their best ideas, they decided to bring instruments, which actually turned out to be a better decision. So as they would sit at these cabinet meetings, they would all grab their instruments and just start to play. And then they would realize the instruments weren't plugged in, they would go plug them in, and then they would start to play so that people could hear. And when the people heard, just the tone, the shift of the room was amazing. You had people who had formerly hated each other, suddenly cheersing beers in the corner, shotgunning. It was beautiful, really. And when the three of them put this all together, it struck everyone in the room at the same time that the thing that was making everything okay was in fact music. And it is now the goal of the band to unite the world under the theme of music, to butt fuck it with music to peace.
Wow, that's really aggressive. I mean, but you have to kind of be in in on the world stage. That's iron fist kind of stuff, which is something that all three leaders have generally adhered to pretty strictly. But man, what I wouldn't have given to been a fly on the wall during that that little jam sesh. I would have loved to see some of these congressional members and Senate chairs just shotgunning beers and really coming together like that. C-SPAN never really gives you the whole picture, I feel. But regardless, that's sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. You can just keep talking. That's fine.
Okay, sorry. I mean, I am the host. So it's kind of a trip. It's been panning out clearly. I mean, doing the music thing, it looks like it's working out for everyone, right?
I mean, you would say so. What do you think? I mean, in the past month, the three of them have been nominated for 4 total Nobel Peace Prizes.
Kim has a Nobel Peace Prize nomination?
Okay, well, not Kim, but we are working with him.
I was gonna say, because I've heard some pretty.
Question.
Gotcha. Anyway, so you could tell me anything about their experience working with Dave Otero. That would be good. Dave Otero is obviously a studio engineer who has worked with bands like Cattle Decapitation and Allegiant and Chemist. He's got quite a repertoire of bands. What was it like for them working with someone who is, I guess, kind of a world leader in his own regard?
I'm sorry, did you say Otero? Dave Otero? Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, Dave Otero.
Do we know him? Can we talk about him? Okay, yes. Apparently Dave is, as you said, an important engineer of some sort.
Right.
And he is also dating a press secretary. That is very strange. Just found that out.
Wow.
So it turns out that they are, yes, quite fond of Dave, even referring to him very often as the 4th member of the band. I would say they have some sort of allegiance to him. Yes.
Right. I mean, that's pretty. It's like I said, Dave, in and of his own right, sounds like you might not know very much about him, but Dave, in and of his own right, is kind of a world leader himself. Like I said, he's really an accomplished engineer, especially in the metal world. He's put out albums from some best-selling bands, chart-topping bands, really. Well, not quite topping, but chart-ranking bands. To see him working with all these world leaders, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I've worked with Dave, not to brag, in the studio a few times, and it's always been a really, really awesome experience. He's a very hands-on producer, and his end product is pretty amazing. So, I mean, is there anything else that you have on their experience with him? I just kind of want to crack into that a little bit more.
Well, actually telling me recently, and now I actually know who you're talking about. It kind of hit me. Donnie was showing me this Facebook page about the back of somebody's head. Turns out it was, in fact, Dave Otero. And if you haven't seen that, it's really beautiful. Donnie looks up to him so much, and the Pledge of Allegiance is often said with his head in place of the flag. And it's a key part of them keeping focus in the studio is actually just being able to focus solely on the head.
Wow, that's I do admire that. I mean, I have seen the back of Dave Otero's head many times, and it is striking. And again, this word keeps coming up. I just can't help it, but it's very inspiring. It's a very inspiring thing. Seeing the head at work, and seeing all that stuff. I mean, that's why I shaved my head. Honestly, the first album I recorded with Dave, I had hair, and after just being so profoundly impacted by the back of his head, I was like, I got to get that. I got to try to capture that essence for the next time I record with him. So I totally understand where Donnie's coming from that angle, and especially because Donnie kind of has hair issues himself. I could see why he would be kind of awe-inspired, and have a lot of respect for someone who can just rock the bald thing instead of trying to go for the hairpiece route. But anyway, it sounds like the kind of thing that you might have to experience firsthand.
I do know I spend most of my day with the band,
Yeah.
and I love every minute of it. And I have gathered that the three of them together thoroughly did enjoy recording with Dave Otero at Flatline Audio, so much so that they flew out in all of their private jets to Westminster, Colorado, to his private studio. And I do know his mixes are indeed crushing. They allow for a lot of space, a lot of detail, and he's very good at adapting the style of the mix to fit the band's needs. And in this case, he wanted to make sure there was enough room in the mix for everyone's giant heads as well as their goals to fit.
That really is incredible. I feel like you'd have to really have a lot of overhead room for those heads, particularly. So anyway, what's the plan from here? I mean, obviously, you just announced, this signing with Metal Blade Records. You just released this new single. You being the band, because anyway, and you guys are all working together and all that good stuff. But the next logical route would be playing shows and touring, which with the state of the world being how it is, I know you might not be super familiar with the ins and outs of the music industry, but live shows are kind of on hold right now, despite certain states opening up and all this kind of stuff, and with the COVID pandemic and all this kind of the situation. So is there plans to do streaming or live shows post COVID, or what's the scoop on that?
Well, streaming has been discussed as an option. The original platform, something TikTok, something they didn't want to do that for some reason. I'm not quite privy to that information. It turns out that part of that was part of a top secret.
I think this is the redacted part of the conversation. Anyway, go ahead. Kirk.
I must have gotten reducted
there. Yeah, that happens.
So it's been discussed to do some streaming, but in fact, one member of the band, who I will not name, particularly thinks that it's incredibly lame and for losers. Specifically. But they are going to be doing live shows. The band are speaking with a few different booking agents to get a feel for 2021 and how live shows are going to look in 2021. Riley, what is your opinion on that? What are you, from the metal side of the world, what do you think?
I mean, I think saying streaming is for losers is a bit aggressive, but, I think that, these...
I did not say it, but a certain member of the band did.
Right,
Perhaps.
Right, that's fair. I mean, I understand. I know what it's like to be a mouthpiece. Anyway, so it's we we kind of the streaming thing is it's a new frontier. You know what I mean? It's still people still kind of working out the kinks. I think that it's not a permanent solution, but I think that it's working in the meantime. I think that it's allowing bands an avenue to continue to interact with their fans and generate a little bit of revenue. And I guess when you're in the kind of position where you're leading 3 world superpowers, and some of us are only paying $750 in taxes, that generating a lot of revenue isn't a huge deal. But for a lot of the bands in the metal world, it's a struggle. You know what I mean? We're not exactly top 40s kind of genre of music. So keeping attention and keeping the fans interested, and giving them a little bit of fan service, as it's said in the industry, is really important. So trying to keep that visibility with streaming, I think is a good idea. So maybe relay that to the guys. I know that it's hard to get their ear. They're obviously pretty busy dudes, but just my
They
two
are
cents.
insanely busy, and I'm sure that your words will have a massive effect on them. I will definitely pass them on to them. Definitely.
I believe you.
Obviously, with as busy of a schedule as they all have, live shows and streaming is a bit tricky. I mean, they did make time out of their busy schedule to speak with you today, and you should be grateful for that. I mean, Vlad is booked through 2036, and Kimmy's booked really just until he dies. So logically, long tour runs are a bit tricky and a bit difficult to manage in that situation.
Well, I mean, what about like festivals? I know a lot of bands that don't tour, try to run the festival circuit, every once in a while. Is that an option for them?
Festivals are definitely in the cards, a few one offs here and there. There has been some talk of doing another Live Aid, potentially at Wembley, things like that.
That's
And
ambitious.
I mean, they are ambitious people.
That's fair. That's fair. Anyway, carry on.
Carry on like continue or carry on like a dead deer carcass.
Like my wayward son, like Kansas. But
Okay.
but I mean, Wembley, big stadium. Do they have place? Are they going to play anywhere else? Are they going to?
Well, it's pretty unlikely you're going to catch them at the Lookout Lounge.
Oh, that's too bad. I really love the Lookout Lounge. It's a good little spot. I mean, that sushi place right next door is pretty awesome as well. They've got really good selection of rolls and all that good stuff. But yeah, it sucks. The Lookout Lounge it's a pretty magical place.
Yeah, I mean, that sushi really is wonderful. And for those of you watching who have not experienced the sushi next to the Lookout Lounge, I highly recommend it personally. But though I do not speak for the band and I do not know their personal views on the sushi place next to Lookout Lounge.
That's fair, and thank you for clarifying. Well, I mean, it's been great talking to you, Kaylee, Crady, whatever. I just got the Corks part. I'm sorry, I kind of got stuck on that. I'm still a little bit confused, but anyway, thank you so much for giving us the scoop on Nuclear Power Trio. For those of you watching, you can follow them at all the social media links listed below. Definitely check them out. They're doing really great things, not only politically for world peace, but also for music and the jazz gent fusion metal scene. Uh, Signed with Metal Blade Records, just released a Clear and Present Rager yesterday. They've got a merch store up.
Out on October 30th, which is the last Friday before the election. So that way, hopefully, we can accomplish world peace before the election.
That would be ideal. That would be ideal. Well, thank you all again so much for watching, and thank you, Mrs. Korik, for speaking for the gentlemen. I know that they're extremely busy, and we'll get to that later. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. This has been the Metal Blade Live series. I'm your host, Riley McShane of Allegion. This has been Nuclear Power Trio's press secretary, Mrs. 8.6 Korik, and we will see you next time.